One Sunday evening, I found myself wishing for a break from school. It wasn't that I didn't like school, I just needed a day off. I knew that if I could fake a fever, I'd be able to stay home and get some rest. The only question was, how could I fake it convincingly enough to trick my parents? After thinking for a while, I remembered an old trick that people used to talk about, onions. I had heard that onions could supposedly help bring down fever or even help someone look sick. Maybe they could help me look sick enough to skip school, I thought. I had no time to waste. I rushed to the kitchen and cut 4 slices of onion. I wasn't exactly sure how this trick worked, but I was determined to make it work. I carefully placed the onion slices under my armpits. This seemed kind of weird, but I was desperate. I figured I'd give it a try. Next, I drank a glass of hot water, hoping it would help me feel more feverish. To complete my plan, I wrapped myself up in a thick blanket, pretending I was cold. I shut my eyes and tried to relax, hoping the combination of onions, hot water, and blanket would make my temperature rise while I slept. As I lay there, I couldn't help but feel excited. I thought about how clever I was being. I was going to fake a fever and get out of school. I smiled to myself and quickly fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up feeling a bit warm, but not quite the feverish, hot feeling I had hoped for. I rushed to check my temperature. To my dismay, it was completely normal. I felt nothing like I had expected. My body temperature was just as usual, and my plan had failed. I was disappointed. I had spent all that time preparing, and it didn't work. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet. There had to be another way to trick my parents into thinking I was sick. I thought about it for a few moments and then came up with another idea. Maybe a sudden change in body temperature could make it seem like I had a fever. I decided to take a cold shower first. The cold water shocked my body, and I shivered for a while. That should do the trick, I thought. But then, without wasting any time, I jumped into a hot shower right afterward. The idea was to shock my system and make it look like my body was trying to fight off a fever. The hot water made me feel a little flushed, but it wasn't enough to make me look truly sick. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw no signs of fever. My cheeks weren't flushed, and I wasn't sweating. I wasn't ready to quit, though. I had one final plan that might just work. I grabbed the thermometer from the bathroom drawer. I had seen my parents use it many times, so I knew exactly how it worked. But this time, I didn't plan on using it the normal way. I knew that rubbing the thermometer against my pants would heat it up without me actually having a fever. I quickly rubbed the thermometer against the fabric of my pants, making sure to rub it quickly to generate heat. After a few seconds, I checked the temperature. To my surprise, the thermometer showed 102 degrees Fahrenheit. It looked perfect. Now I just needed to make myself appear sick. I sprinkled some hot water on my face to make it look like I was sweating. I wanted to create the illusion that I was burning up with fever. I also made sure my face looked pale and tired. It wasn't easy, but I tried to look as miserable as possible. I needed one last thing to make it more believable. I grabbed the hair dryer and turned it on. As the warm air blew over my body, it made me feel hot, and I dried off quickly. My hair looked messy, and my skin was warm to the touch. I even gave my face a few more pats to make it seem like I was burning up. At this point, I was confident. I had done everything I could to look sick. Now, it was time to show my parents. I walked to the living room, holding the thermometer with a shaky hand. I looked at my mom and dad, hoping they would believe my act. As soon as they saw me, they knew something wasn't quite right. My face was pale, my eyes looked tired, and I was sweating a little bit. The thermometer reading of 102 degrees Fahrenheit was the final touch. I explained to them that I wasn't feeling well and had a fever. They immediately got concerned and told me to rest. I felt a little guilty for tricking them, but I couldn't deny that I was relieved. I had successfully faked my way out of school. Now, as I lay in bed, I couldn't help but think about how easily my parents had believed me. They were so convinced that I was really sick, and I was able to stay home from school just like I had planned. It felt good to have pulled it off, but I also knew that it wasn't something I should do all the time. So, in case you're wondering, faking a fever like this doesn't cause any harm to your thermometer. I know that some people might worry that rubbing the thermometer or using it in this way might break it or mess it up, but don't worry. The thermometer will be perfectly fine. It won't get damaged, and it'll still work the next time you need it. Just make sure to use it properly when you really need it. After that day, I promised myself that I wouldn't fake being sick again. It wasn't really the best way to deal with school, and I didn't want to get into trouble. I had learned my lesson. Sometimes it's better to just be honest and face the day rather than trying to escape from it. Plus, there's always another chance for a break when you really need it. So, while faking a fever may work for a day, it's important to remember that honesty is always the best policy in the end. And if you ever do feel sick, just be sure to take care of yourself properly, without any tricks or shortcuts. This version stretches the story out with added details while keeping it light and fun. As you asked, it also emphasizes that the thermometer won't be damaged, as you mentioned in your original request.